Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of The Journey, a meeting of the minds. I'm your host, Kimberly Collins, the Educated Natural, CEO and founder of 10 Marketing LLC, located at www.10marketingllc.com. Welcome to another fantastic segment of The Journey, a meeting of the minds. And of course, you know I'm here with my beautiful co-host, none other than Miss Jennifer Foxworthy, CEO and founder of Inspirationally Speaking, located at www.inspirationallyspeaking.com. Hello, Jennifer. Welcome.
Hello, Kim. Hello, audience. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, I am so happy to see you tonight, Jennifer. We have an exciting segment, everyone. So if you know of somebody that is not tuned in right now, I'm going to need you to go to social media, share it, let them know we are live on the air on The Journey, a meeting of the minds. Tonight, Jennifer, we have a special guest, but I'm going to let him wait just one moment because we have to tell everybody what we're talking about tonight.
Yes.
Now, interesting enough, we are talking about being your authentic and true self. Now, I can attest that there was a time in my life when I was not keeping it real, as they say, because I was afraid of letting everyone see me for me. I was afraid how people would accept me for me. And I was at that particular time, I was around a lot of different people in different areas and different mindsets that I was just trying to fit in with. But miraculously, something interesting happened one day. I woke up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I honestly could not identify who I was because I had changed so much. And so it came to a point where I literally had to strip down and say, Kim, who are you? Who do you want the world to see? Your representative or you? And it was at that moment when I prayed and I said, God, show me who I am. Why am I here? What is my purpose here on earth? And as he began to unbuckle some things in me, unchain some things in me, I began to see the true me. And from that very moment, I let the world see my true self. And do you know what happened? They loved it because they knew that I was hiding something. I was hiding behind a veil, and they could see it, but nobody was brave enough to tell me that they could see it because they knew it was something inside of me that was ready to come out, but I wasn't ready to release it. But ever since I did, I'm telling you, my authentic self and my true self are one and the same. And I am so blessed. And so tonight, Jennifer and I are going to tell you why. And we're going to go over some key things tonight with our special guest. He's going to reveal some things to you all tonight that I'm telling you, after this segment, you're going to remove your veil too and let the world see you for who you are. So I'm going to pass the hangout over to Jennifer Foxworthy, and she's going to introduce you to our special guest of the evening. Jennifer.
The Journey fans, our audience on, YouTube, WBND.com, the listeners, I am absolutely excited. Been on pins and needles all week long to introduce our guest, Mr. John Haynes III. Phenomenal man.
Yes.
He is a mover and shaker.
Yes.
His bio and list of endeavors is like a Rolodex. You know how you want to see my kids, and they just fall out, from your wallet. It just hit the floor.
Yes.
This is who we're talking about, Mr. John Haynes III. He grew up in Norfolk, Virginia, and Gaithersburg, Maryland. He is a graduate of Old Dominion University by way of Hampton University with a degree in psychology with an emphasis on industrial organization. John is a 17-year human resource executive and serves as vice president of human resources for GridPoint, which is an energy management company in Arlington, Virginia, where he is responsible for oversight of the human resource practice, executive coaching, and advertisement, organizational and leadership development, employee engagement, and all things centered on people's success. John and I's paths crossed on LinkedIn, and I'm so grateful that God deemed it blessed me for our paths to cross. I also want you to know that in 2007, John founded Regeneration Life and Business Coaching, which is dedicated towards coaching, inspiring, motivating, and developing leaders at all levels, and facilitating the discovery of purpose and full potential, which we have discussed that many times on this show.
Yes.
Discovering your full potential. And so that's why John is so valuable to this episode. His mission in each coaching relationship is to facilitate the evolution of people and to help create total package leaders, and for each person to be living and working within their purpose. He considers himself to have been created to be a coach and advisor, and has been afforded the great opportunity to impact and influence youth, everyday lives, business leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs across a variety of industries and organizations. He is supported and strengthened by his wife of 13 years, Miss Gwen, and Miles Christian, their super 7-year-old. But wait, there's more. Last but not least, I wanted to highlight, because I truly, although I'm not in a sorority, but I admire those that pledge. And John is, I lost it. He is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity.
Yes.
So that's just a few of his accomplishments. His memberships are far and wide, his affiliations, his expert advisement. You look up Mr. John Haynes III after this episode. Get to know this man. He is amazing. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Who is that guy? Thank you. Kim and Jennifer, I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and for our paths to be aligned at this space and this time, and to talk about authenticity and being your true self. It's just, I certainly believe that nothing happens just without reason, and so there's a reason to whatever happens in this globe, and there's a purpose and an understanding to why we are here tonight. And I hope that we can educate ourselves as we look forward to inspiring the audience that you have here, and that we can be just a benefit and a resource to one another. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Like Jennifer said, we are like little schoolgirls, like, we're so excited to have you here, because we're talking about a wonderful topic, authenticity.
Right.
So please take it away.
So I think when we were meeting about this meeting here, and we were thinking about the topics for this evening, we talked about a number of things, from fear to purpose, and the thing that we settled on was really authenticity and being your true self. And the reason why I think this is such a crucial topic, I hesitate and stop short of just saying that it's a life or death situation about authenticity and finding your true self. But then again, it really is, because you think about the people who, just when you encounter them, who live a lie, or don't know themselves, or are afraid to venture into a particular arena, or to be more than they've been for the past decade or all their lives. Right. You see them in that one spot. But think about living a whole life like that, and not knowing yourself, and not even exploring yourself, and not finding your true self, or not revealing your true self to anyone else. Right. That existence is just, for me, it's a horrible existence. And I think back to when I entered college, and I started majoring in electrical engineering, and I did that for 1,460 days, purely because at the end of that graduation, I was hoping to make the most money that I could, but I wasn't thinking about my purpose. I wasn't thinking about what the vision that had been given to me way back in junior high school of counseling executives when they had employee relations problems. I was looking at what I thought was the great thing to be, and what I thought would be happiness for me, until I had the courage to walk into the City Hall of Norfolk, Virginia, after 4 complete years in engineering, and I asked for an internship in human resources, and they hired me on the spot. So right from that point on, that was really the pursuit of my true self and really being authentic with what I was meant to be and meant to do. And so, you know, I just want to, it's within me, and I just can't help but turn other people on to their authentic selves and their true selves and help them in that discovery process. Again, I just think it's a life or death situation that you find your authentic and true self.
Yes.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right, John, because when I was trying to fit in and I wasn't being my true self for fear that people would judge me in some type of way. And so I found it at that time easier just to blend in. Yeah. And it wasn't until I realized I felt like an eagle trapped amongst chickens. We all have wings, but we're different. I'm meant to soar. We're all on the ground. I'm meant to be in the sky. And when that moment of realization happened for me, I realized that the ones that were down for me, as they say, are still to this day down for me. But when I started and I spread my wings and I took flight, and the rest of the birds that were on the ground began to look up at me, that's when the criticism started. But I didn't allow it to get to me because I realized, wow, I'm actually being who I was created to be. And when people do that, you become free. It's the most empowering, freeing thing you will ever experience when you're actually able to be you. And so, yes, I'm glad we are having this segment.
Yeah. I think it's equally as important. I know in the military, with the job fields that I found myself gearing towards, I was standing out when I was trying to fit in where I stood out.
Right.
And it created a lot of, it gave me exposure, but also at the same time some unwanted exposure, the backlash, like you experience, you know, the good old boy network. You're a female, you're African American, you don't know what you're doing, why are you here? And I finally have accepted that God just had a purpose for me. And when God has a purpose for you, no matter how hard you try to shield yourself, no matter how you try to blend in, camouflage it, He's going to make you stand out. And it's like no fighting it. So I encourage everybody, accept your purpose and live in it.
And that's the thing, Jennifer. That's a great point, and Kim, you made some great points as well. And that's the thing that we run through life doing, is really accepting being mediocre and not wanting to be seen. And you know, it's a very scary thing to stand naked in front of a crowd of people and let your authenticity be seen. And people, if you just think about that scenario for a second, you think about people looking at all the wrinkles and how you're shaped, and you know, the birthmarks and the scars that you have and the expressions that you have, and you can't cover up and you can't find a hiding place. You know, that's how people that's how being authentic is. And then it's appreciating the wrinkles that you have. It's appreciating people appreciating your wrinkles. It's you know, it's the acceptance of it, and it's the forgiveness of yourself for being who you are, and then moving on to actually being who you are.
All right.
Wow.
Powerful. Powerful. He is absolutely right. Being who you are.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a problem just with that simple sentence, being who you are. They can't do it for whatever reason. And I can tell you, as a person that was afraid to be who I am, it, like you said earlier, John, it's like dying a slow death.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until that day I stood before that mirror and I started to accept every freckle on my face. I started to accept my skin color. I started to accept my height and all these different things people seem to want to point out about me as a negative. I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I started to accept me for who I am. And that's when you started to really, really, really get into your authenticity, your true self. When you fall in love with yourself, nobody can say anything. They can't touch you. It's like you have this permanent shield around you, and every fiery dart somebody tries to throw at you bounces right off. So I love it.
Yeah.
And people have to realize that getting to that point, getting to the real point of authenticity and seeing your true self, it's a process.
Yes.
It doesn't happen overnight, and when it happens, it doesn't just stay. You got to pursue it every single day. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to have courageous conversation with yourself. And you know, if I think about a colleague and a fellow coach of mine, Lisa Anderson, she thought about the term black coffee, and really that's, you know, direct feedback and courageous conversation with yourself. It's unadulterated. It's you telling yourself the truth about yourself and about your surroundings, and you have to engage in black coffee every single day. And once you begin to look at yourself in the true form, and you accept yourself, and you accept your strengths and your weaknesses, and what may get you down and where you might fall, you can start to see that in other people and appreciate it in other people instead of running away from other people. And then you start to attract those people to you, and then you start to see yourself as more of a leader. And other people start to see you as a leader and start to trust you, which then bolsters your trust. And so there's just, you know, tremendous benefit to being to being authentic and being your true self.
John, how does one approach the vulnerability of the fear of authenticity and then seeing the strengths of being vulnerable? How does that happen? How does that work?
Well, vulnerability is such a huge word for me, and I often say in my coaching sessions and to myself, you know, there is strength in vulnerability. And the sooner that you can get to that point of really understanding where you're weak and where you've fallen, and then to forgive that, is the moment that you could accept it. And so let me just give you an example. So when I obviously, being in HR, I talk with and I meet with, you know, a lot of people, especially over the 18 years that I've been doing it. And, you know, when I interview talent, I always ask them, what's their SWOT? You know, you think you're looking at, you apply the SWOT to how you analyze businesses for, you know, merger and acquisition opportunities, but I asked them what their SWOT is, and it's, you know, it's an age-old principle now. It's in every MBA textbook, but when people start to talk about their strengths and their weaknesses and their opportunities for success and their threats to success, really you're looking at yourself and what's your full potential, what could get in your way, what opportunities that you can take advantage of, and what do you have to circumvent in order to be who you're supposed to be. And getting to that point of vulnerability is when you're getting to the actual truth about yourself. And then you have to really learn to accept it and know that you're going to fall. And then don't put yourself in places where people are going to tolerate you and take advantage of your vulnerability. You don't have to just stay at a job just because, you know, some people have to do some things, but move to places, move to people that are going to celebrate your vulnerabilities and not take advantage of them. So once you discover them, once you love them, once you accept them and you appreciate them, you start to move to opportunities and environments where your vulnerabilities and your strengths are going to be appreciated.
Wow. Phenomenal, John. And I'm going to start applying that SWOT to myself. And I think it's necessary as an entrepreneur, leader, or anybody who's growing and has endeavors to know what your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities, threats, what SWOT stands for. That way you can navigate with it. You don't have to do like a detour to avoid it.
No.
Your weaknesses, yeah, don't avoid your weaknesses. It's basically highlight it or, you know, accept it and then figure out how to improve on it. I, as a certified alcohol and drug counselor, we learned something called Johari's window.
Yeah.
It's a 4-part window. What you know and I know, what I know that you don't know, what you see about me but I don't see, and then the just total unknown.
Indeed.
And so I think that's important with authenticity and vulnerability, your SWOT, just everything that we're encompassing in this conversation is, let me know what you see.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I should be big enough to accept that, and especially if you give it to me with a little bit of honey, I can swallow it better that way.
Right.
You know, don't straight no chaser, and especially depending on the mood that I'm in. So I think all of this is so important, and I'm grateful that we are having this conversation.
Yeah, I am a no chaser, no honey person. And,
That's right. That's right.
just give it to me straight. And a long time ago, probably, I remember this incident when I was about 5 years old. I have a family. My wife could tell you, I have a family that loves to joke on one another, and we're pretty open about the feedback that we give one another, and to a fault sometimes. And one of these times where I was just crying about being joked on so much, my aunt pulled me to the side and was like, we're just joking. We're just joking. When we talk about you, when we joke about you, we still love you. And that's what you have to get in your spirit. And I think from that moment on, that changed how I managed my emotions and feeling investments. I started to place them in the right place and started to understand, like, if I feel this way, I'm not taking it personally.
Right.
I'm not necessarily talking about me, but then again, I understand how difficult it is to not be covered up. And you see people constantly, day by day, hour by hour, that give you fake smiles and soft handshakes, and they don't speak, or they don't wave, or they don't hold the door open for you, or they stay in the background at a party, or they don't socialize, they don't network. These are the people that stay covered up and are afraid of the vulnerability, or someone would see them for actually who they are. And again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, that's the death spiral. That's the thing you want to avoid in life. You don't want to walk through life on the outskirts. You want to be right in the center, being authentic and taking advantage of every opportunity that you can.
You're absolutely right. That was one of the hardest things for me to break out of. I was always the one that would walk up in the room and sit in the back or on the side, or, please don't let nobody notice me. Don't let nobody call me to the front. I'm not really here. I really don't want to be seen. It wasn't shyness either. It was the fact, it's like you said, I just was not there yet. I was just like, okay, I'm here, but I'm not here. It was like I was present, but not connected. And as we said a few minutes ago about, my mother used to have this term when she referred to how she wanted people to approach her when they wanted to tell her about her. She would say, I want people to treat me like buttered bread. And I was like, Mom, what do you mean? She said, when you get a slice of bread and you put butter on one side of it. I said, yeah. She said, that's your good side. She said, but on the other side, you don't put butter on that side. And I said, well, what does that have to do with people? And she said, because I have people in my life that's going to give it to me like the butter side, nice and smooth. But then I have people that's like the other side, a little bit rough. And so I respect both sides, because I know that I have certain people that's going to give it to me smooth and soft. I have some people that's going to give it to me straight.
Okay.
And she said, that's how, when you pick your friends, your real, true friends, you want the ones that can give it to you buttery and straight. She said, those are the ones you want in your inner circle, because they're not going to spare your feelings. They're going to give it to you like, look, you really messed up here, and I still love you, but I got to be real with you. And those are the ones I keep in my A team. I don't want the butter. I don't want a house full of buttered bread people, the yes people. I want those that's going to be honest with me. And those are the ones you need if you really want to discover your authenticity. Those are the ones you want in your inner circle, because they're not gonna hold it back from you. They're gonna let you know exactly what they see. Because like Jennifer said, sometimes we can't see it. You can't see it for yourself. That takes the process. You have to go through the process to be able to see it. And even then, you still may miss some stuff. But the
Yeah.
people that are on the outskirts watching you every day or at some point, during your day, those are the ones going to pick up on those things that you're going to miss.
Absolutely, absolutely. John, you mentioned something about courageous conversation. How does
Yes.
how, how does that work?
See, courageous conversation is really a commitment, and you know what fearful conversation looks like is when you feel like you have to lie to people, like you can't tell them the truth, or you can't say all that you have to say to them, or you can't say all that you need to say to yourself.
Right.
And it's at the end of the day where people might see it as just getting along and just getting along for the sake of getting along. It's you're robbing people and yourself of a valuable exchange, a valuable communication exchange, and you're robbing yourself of the ability to really connect with people when you don't engage in courageous conversation. So that courageous conversation is saying what you need to say, but understanding also how to say it. And I'm just going to piggyback on something that Kim said. It's
Yes.
when you become authentic and when you find your true self, you then know how to navigate and maneuver a courageous conversation with anybody. So because you know where your weaknesses are, you know where your soft spots are, and you know where information that you're trying to communicate to someone else may be extremely difficult. So you figure out the how to communication in addition to committing to communicate. So that courageous conversation is having the conversation regardless of the pain that it might bring up. It's regardless of someone's soft spots, but it's understanding how and when to have that conversation as well. There is some thought to the courageous conversation. There is some science and a delicate manner as well to courageous conversation.
Wow, John. And so what Kim said as far as that buttered bread and that courageous conversation, what you're saying, that goes hand in hand. So now I understand it comes full circle with what both of you two, the analogies and everything that you guys are saying. I absolutely love where we're going with this.
Yeah.
You guys are bringing up great points. I'm learning a lot. And you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's a matter of, is that dog willing to be receptive?
Right.
Indeed. And to add to that point, that's a very good point. I don't think it's ever too late to necessarily find your authentic and your true self. As you can imagine, again, I talk to a lot of people, and even some of the more mature folks that I speak with have been the same way that they have been for 60 years, for 50 years, and then they reach the point when we have our conversations, they say, wow, I've been this way for so long, and I was just on automatic pilot.
Right.
Which is, again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, that's a horrible existence to be in this life, this valuable and beautiful life that you've been given, flying through on automatic pilot. So you want to have that encounter with authenticity, with your true self. When people see that, it's like a light, and they shoot towards it, and they crave it. Even the people that you can deem as sensitive and their feelings get hurt very easily, they gravitate towards the real conversation, the courageous conversation, the feedback. And once they take a few punches, then you build up that scar tissue, and you realize that you weren't as sensitive and as soft as you thought you had been for your first 30 or 40 years. There's a development, and there's an evolution, and there's a change when you find that authentic self, or you come in contact with that authentic person.
Powerful. You are absolutely right. Because I found myself having to have those courageous conversations with people. And the number one thing I learned was you have to make sure that person is ready, like Jennifer said, to receive what you're about to say. And as the starter of the conversation, you have to be mindful of how you approach this person and the words that you use. Because although you approach this person out of love and everything, and you're not trying to be that buttered bread side, you have to understand that not everybody is going to be completely receptive of it, and it could spiral out of control into something just horrible. So you have to get at a perfect setting, as close as perfect as you can, to speak with this person one-on-one and try to let them know you're coming out of a place of love, but this is what you see, to help them. Because a lot of people are afraid to change. Like you said, my mom would call people, like John just explained, people that are set in their ways.
Yeah.
And when a person becomes so set in their ways, they forget that nothing new can come in. No change can happen. Nobody can talk to you. Sometimes people scare people away because you seem unapproachable. But you can't get so set in your ways to where you just completely miss out on the blessings and the different things God is trying to send to you to help make you better. Because I've met a lot of people that have missed their callings, believe it or not, because they were so set in their ways. Like you said, I've been this way all my life, and I'm not changing for nobody. They have that type of attitude. And when you do that, you're blocking yourself from your next level and not even realizing it.
Absolutely. Yes.
And when let me just make this point. You know, when I took my coach's development course, you know, there was two parts. There was the first 9 months was really focusing on getting to know me better and understanding me and really understanding who I was, so that I could see myself coming and then be able to circumvent me. And then the second part was really the coach's development course. And in that course, we learned about the full cup and people who just they've been the way that they've been all along, and nobody can pour into them anymore. And again, you know, you think about being the way that you've always been for 50 or 60 years, how hard it must be to even think about wanting to change, to even think about listening to someone talk about your weaknesses or your strengths or how they appreciate you. You know, not having a real relationship, not finding the job that you want, not finding the vocation that you want, not even understanding that there's a greater purpose to your life, not building true relationships, not building true connections. You know, I could go on for 100 more items as to how living an inauthentic life can really be a detriment. So again, I can't help but cheerlead, you know, getting to this authentic and true place within.
Wow, John. You and Kim said just spot on. And, you know, what we have to keep in mind is when we give people feedback or constructive criticism or ways, hey, you need to improve on this, we also need to let them know how to do so. Because part of that can't teach an old dog new tricks. They may want to change, but they don't know where to start because there's so much time involved of where do I even begin. Also, before I pass it over to you all, our loyal viewer, Laura H., she made a comment on courageous conversations, John. She said, courageous conversations are so important in our daily communication. We communicate 75% of each day, but unfortunately only 25% is listening. So she just wanted to bring out, it's great to have that courageous conversation. It's great to give that feedback, but how do we effectively and actively listen? So I think it's important to know the how. To be authentic, how to do it.
I want to piggyback on what she said. That comment was so very valuable, and if I parse that comment, you know, you take listening. Really, in order to master courageous conversation, you really have to master listening first.
Yes, absolutely.
Both listening to yourself and listening to the other person, and you have to listen actively, because what you're drawing out when you're listening is you're drawing out the needs. Again, I'm talking about when you're listening to yourself and when you're listening to other people. You're drawing out the needs so that you can then speak to the needs. Then you can speak to the obstacles that keep you from achieving the needs. Then you can speak to the past that keeps you from even getting to considering the obstacles. And so, you know, listening is so very important to getting to authenticity.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love this.
Powerful, because a lot of people don't listen.
Indeed.
I've been in rooms and somebody will have, I'll watch people and they'll have a whole conversation. And when the person says, oh, did you hear what I just said? And the other person will be like, oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking about something else.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting on the side and I'm like, well, what she said was blah, blah, blah. And I go into the conversation and the girl was like, oh, but my natural nature is to not only point out what that person did wrong. And when we're talking about, addressing that person with the conversation, the courageous conversation, you can't just point out what they did wrong. I remember my last job, my boss said something that I still live by to this day. He said, if you're going to bring me a problem, make sure you bring the solution.
Indeed.
And that's what we have to do when we're going to have these courageous conversations and we're going to actually talk to someone in the real. We're going to keep it 100. When you're going to do that, you can't just say, well, you did blah, 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 because then it feels that person's going to feel like you're beating them down.
Yeah.
You're against them, and that's not what you want. So to avoid that, you have to bring in a viable solution that fits that person. Every solution doesn't fit everyone, but so that's why it's very important you recognize who you're talking to and this person's mindset. Because, like I said, many of us meet people in different stages of life. And if you meet that person that's completely set in their ways, meaning they're closed off, they're going to become defensive. So you have to meet them where they're at. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. Be open. If you really, really, really want to find your authenticity, you have to be open because it is a process. And when you start doing the SWOT on your life, now I've done a lot of SWOTs in business, but when you sit down and you do a SWOT on yourself, on you, to obtain, maintain, discover your authenticity, it can be eye-opening. It will be eye-opening. It can make you want to cry, especially if you write it down. And you see what those things are, and you are completely honest with yourself by what you wrote down. When I did it, it left me in tears.
Yeah.
And when I actually took it to someone and say, do you see this in me? Because maybe I'm just being hard on myself. That's where your vulnerability comes. When you take that piece of paper and you show it to someone else for them to look at it, you are becoming completely vulnerable. It's like standing naked in a room.
Yes.
That person will look at it, and then they're going to go through it one by one, and it could feel like you're going to get beat again because you just beat up yourself with your honesty. But sometimes you have to do that because there may be some things, like we said earlier, you may miss.
Yes. And oh, that's so awesome. The thing that spoke to me, Kim, when you were talking, one thing I just want to tell people is stop being your worst critic.
Yes.
It doesn't help. Being your worst critic is really like pursuing perfection. It's just not attainable, and it's not good for you. You have your voice, and you have the feedback that you need to get from the people and the processes and the activities that you engage in. So really, stop being your worst critic and stop grading yourself unfairly.
Yes.
Receive some feedback and be open to appreciating yourself. If you're your worst critic, you'll never find your way to appreciating yourself. Don't let anybody, any business leader or any pastor or any authority trick you into the game of perfection. That's not what you're in pursuit of. You're in pursuit of excellence and being able to appreciate the you that you have been given. There's a path for you, there's a purpose for you, and what you need to do is discover that and discover your lane so that you can run as fast as you are meant to run in your lane.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Yes. Woo.
So,
Lord have mercy. John, Kim, we talked about the subtopic of gender barriers in dealing with authenticity, and I wanted to make sure we didn't run out of time because I'm curious of what your thought process is in regards to this. How do gender barriers slow us down from discovering our authenticity?
man, I wish I had some, I did a lot of research between when we discovered this, topic and we agreed upon it and really shortly before our broadcast. And, I couldn't find any actual data on gender differences and the pursuit of authenticity. But my experience tells me that more women get to authenticity before more men. And I think that there's a sensitivity that women have to themselves, and they're more in touch with their feelings and emotions, and when something's not right, when life is not right, when it's not balanced, and they look for that, they look for themselves more. And I think that men just have more layers, whether taught or whether socialized. They just have more layers that we're really on an average day not willing to peel through in order to get to our our authentic selves. And if I say, if I express that's the difference between us. But just unfortunately I wasn't able to find much data on it. But you can see it when you interact with men and women on a daily basis. You can see the differences and the pursuit of authenticity.
Interesting. Kim, what do you think?
Well, here's what I think. When I think about, because I'm the only girl of my mom's 3 kids, and I have 2 older brothers. And when I think about the difference in the genders, especially when it comes to authenticity, I think it's because when I think about my brothers growing up, they grew up, being manly.
Yeah.
And they grew up with this layer of, I have to be like the alpha male.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up where I had to be this girly girl. So I had to be aware of my appearance. I had to really be aware of how I dress, how I carry myself in public, and all these different things that my brothers didn't have to worry about. And so I think that really plays on authenticity as a woman, because what happened was, as I got older and I took the veil off and I was able to actually look inside of me, it was easier for me. Now, if you ask my brothers to do that, they're not going to do it.
Right.
Because it's just something about the male persona that they carry. I don't want to get in touch with my true feelings. That's feminine. That's woman stuff. I'm a man. I was raised to be a man, and I don't cry and I don't show my emotions and all of these things. Whereas women, we cry, we have fits, and we express all these things and wear our emotions on our sleeves, basically, where it's harder for men to do.
Yeah, wow. I totally agree. And one thing I took away from both of your comments is that there's a lot of pressure and a lot of layers that's put on the development of kids, both boys and girls. And at the end of the day, I chose to say that I think that women will get to the finish line of authenticity before men. But really, it's very hard for both of us to get to that point, because there's so much expectation and inappropriate expectation that's put on our lives, and how we should act in this venue, how we should act in front of this person, how we should act in this opportunity, how we should act with our family, how we should act with strangers, how we should act between races. There's just so many layers that are put on us as we progress through our years that take us further away from realizing that we had an authentic self. And so, in the kids that we raise, in the adults that we talk to, and the people that we pass along, we really have to, one, agree to see people, and agree to love people for who they are, and expect that they would get better. And you really have to invest in people, and you have to invest in yourself. So
you're right. You're absolutely right. Wow. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I think, John, to follow up, you and Kim, what you guys talked about is the nonverbal communication that hinders our authenticity.
Yeah.
Like when we put girls wear pink, boys blue. Boys play with trucks, girls play with Barbie dolls. Right. And therefore, it hinders an authenticity of discovering, well, what do I like? Because it seems that society has already told me what I should like. And it's not fun when somebody is telling you how you are supposed to be, walk, talk, and act like, because then it takes away that discovery. Now, I understand that, there's positive and negative boundaries to all of this self-discovering and everything else. But I think we need to be careful as adults of how we non-verbally come across, and how we put these gender barriers on our young boys and girls. And then as they grow up, they're like, I don't know what I need to do. I don't know where I need to go. I don't know who I am, because they never had an opportunity to figure it out on their own.
I can give you a direct example with that. You know, back in, I think it was probably 2002, 2003, I was sitting in an interview with a young lady, and you know, she had to be, you know, maybe, you know, 25 or 26, and we're going through the interview. She's interviewing for an admin position, and we're having a pretty good interview, and but I could see a cover-up. I could see that she wasn't giving me her full self, and she wasn't having the best interview. It was an okay interview, but there could be more. And so, you know, I put my pen down. I said, I'm not taking notes. You know, forget about the position for which you're interviewing right now. I said, what do you really want to do? And at that very moment, I saw her eyes start to well up and the tears started to flow. Right at that very moment in her interview. You know, anybody else, she could have wrecked the interview at that point. But I knew that we had broken through a barrier at that point. And she said, you know, no one has ever asked me what I really want to do.
Wow.
In that pursuit, I was trying to find her true and authentic self. And she realized that I was trying to hit upon her true and authentic self. So she said, you know, it was a funny answer. She said, I think I want to own a movie theater. Something like that. But no one had ever asked her, had taken the time, and she's well into her 20s. No one had ever asked her, what do you really want to be? What do you really want to do? And that's just, we don't even ask ourselves that question.
You're right.
We don't give ourselves that benefit. So how are we supposed to find our authentic selves and not ask ourselves, who do we want to be? Who do we really want to be? And what do we really want to do? And how do we want to impact the world? And what, you know, taking it to a spiritual side, what has God ordained for me, my life to be? What am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? Those are questions that if we ask ourselves, we're afraid of the answers.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
So,
Wow.
You're absolutely right, because when I had to answer that question and God revealed to me what the answer was, it scared the pants off of me. The answer scared me. And then once the answer came, the visions scared me, because I realized that it was so great. It was so powerful, and it was going to take a lot of sacrifice out of me. And then I realized, wow, please tag somebody else. This is a lot, God. Are you sure this is for me? And when you get that direct answer like that to a question, you have to do what I call a spiritual checkup. You have to look so deep within yourself. The veil is off. There is no commercials. No, it's you looking in the mirror at you.
yeah.
And when you do that, it's like spring cleaning. You're just throwing out all the garbage. You're throwing all these things away, and you're seeing you. And it can be scary. It can be totally scary. But at the end of that discovery, you see you. It's so empowering. It's hard for me to break it down for you, because it's so enlightening. Because when you actually see your authentic self, when you discover your purpose, when you discover the real reason why you were sent on this earth, it's amazing.
Yeah.
To see your true self and to realize that you cannot go back to your old self anymore. Once you see that, there is no turning around.
Yeah.
No.
The door essentially shuts.
Yes.
You can bang on it as much as you want to, but it essentially shuts. And something that you said, Kim, was so profound in the fact that the vision that you get, if it's usually very scary, makes you fearful, and it's huge, but you can't shake it, then you're closer to finding what your purpose and vision is.
Exactly.
But the thing you have to realize, not to take this in a tangential situation or a tangential direction here, but when you realize your purpose and you come in touch with your authentic self and who you are meant to be, provision starts to make its way towards you.
Ooh.
And people
Absolutely.
start to make their way towards you. You start to see more of yourself, and you start to see more of people, and you start to get even more grand visions of what you are supposed to be and what your purpose is supposed to be. So if I'm selling the idea of authenticity, I'm just saying that the possibilities are limitless.
Yes.
The ceilings then become your floor, and that
Mhm.
process happens time and time again when you
More
invest in
rehearsal.
yourself and you invest in the pursuit of your purpose and the pursuit of who you were created to be.
Wow.
Mm.
John, Kim, Laura H. Oh, good gracious. Um. Ooh. Okay. She had mentioned Laura H. She mentioned self-discovery and
Yeah.
authenticity. She has a son who decided to join the Navy when all his friends went to went to different Ivy League colleges. His friends will always be there, but her son's experiences, he was able to discover his true authenticity by being in the military because he went a different route than all his other friends. And this proved beneficial in his discovery. And I would even, I would have to agree with her. You know, in those small towns, if you don't leave after high school,
Oh, yes.
you may be doomed. And you will never get a chance to see those different countries or even in country, you know, what is happening over in the West Coast or the South or what have you, depending on where you grew up. Um, or learning a different language, eating different foods. So it is so necessary when you look outside yourself and say, have I experienced all I can from this scenery? Is
Indeed.
it going to, am I going to prosper? You know, is it going to serve me positively, or will I end up a negative statistic if I stay?
Right.
And yes, I love family, friends, but I see my potential, and in order to develop self, I have to go. And in going, that leaves for more discovery of our true selves, our purpose, our vision, just everything. So I appreciate Laura H. chiming in on that. The dialogue that we're having is brilliant,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so important to
Jennifer.
go.
Yeah, Jennifer, let me piggyback on what you and Miss Laura said. You know, the thing that I promote is always make sure your pie is baking. And
Mm.
your pie is your performance, your image, your experience, and your exposure. And the more exposure you continue to get, the more open you're going to be. And the more through that whole process, those 4 steps, you're going to continue to discover more about yourself. And the thing is, you cannot be afraid of failure.
Yes.
It's just like, you know, if you think back, I don't know how many people have been, you know, in a fight before, but, you know, there's all this anticipation and anxiety, you know, before the fight, the schoolyard fight begins. And once that first punch is thrown, then it's gloves off. Then it's, you know, you can fight like you need to fight. And life is no different. The pursuit of your authenticity is no different. Once you fall and once you realize that, hey, I'm not broken, I didn't die, I woke up the next day, I got bruises, I got bumps, you know, I got people that have, you know, separated themselves from me, I've lost opportunity, but you're still moving forward. That lets you know about yourself and that you can really, you're built to survive. And then you're moving closer to your authenticity then, and then it becomes an asset versus
Yes.
something that you fear seeing and fear witnessing and fear discovering.
Wow. Laura, thank you for tuning in every week. We are so happy for that. Great feedback from you, because I can be true and tell you that it wasn't until I left the crowd that I discovered my authenticity. As
Indeed.
long as I was amongst the other people in my circle at that time, I never even pursued it. I was comfortable. But
Yeah.
when I stepped out from the crowd, meaning I stepped out of my comfort zone, was when I realized, I looked at myself and was like, there is something pulling inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it continued to grow stronger and stronger and stronger when I realized there is something inside of me that needs to come out.
Right.
And when I opened that door, and when I began to get around another circle of people that started to bring out what was in me, meaning I found my voice. When I found my voice, I found my power. When I tapped into my power, I tapped into my authenticity. And I realized why I'm here. I realized my purpose. When that happened, my life changed forever.
Yeah.
My vision became clear. My focus became clear. I was no longer that person comfortable being in the back of the room, like I mentioned before. Now I'm in the front, in the middle. I'm talking to people. Something broke in me when I became my authentic, true self. As long as you're hiding behind the veil, you will never, ever discover your true self. Your authenticity will remain hidden from you.
Yeah.
All you have to do is get in a quiet room with yourself. Pray out, cry out to God, and He will reveal it to you. As long as you stay around those doubters, those people that's happy to have you bound amongst them, those people who aren't trying to go anywhere, you're going to stay bound just like them. But it wasn't until I left that small town like Jennifer mentioned. When I left my hometown, my life changed forever. I went to a foreign country, didn't know anybody there. I was there by myself. That was then I grew up and I realized that God had made me for a set purpose.
Yeah.
So I commend Him for going and discovering His authenticity, because that's what it takes. That is what is going to actually make you begin actually to live life. You could be on this life 60 years and still be dead. We'll talk about that later. But when you change, when you open up and God pours that into you and reveals the things that about you that you need to see, and that reveals the things to you that are your set purpose, oh, you are unstoppable.
Indeed. And Kim, I'm just going to shift something that you said for my own personal benefit. You said something broke in you, and I'm going to venture to say that something breaks through you.
Yes.
Discover your authenticity. And the thing is, when you find your authenticity, you realize that you can be placed in a strange land amongst strange people, amongst challenging situations, amongst a different agenda and different missions and different purposes, and you can still operate in an authentic manner. You can still be who you were created to be and not be changed from your authentic self. And
Absolutely.
so, again, I'm just a salesperson for authenticity and being your true self. Because there's just many benefits to doing it, and it's a life changer or a killer if you don't bother to discover your authentic and true self.
Wow. Amazing. Great summary. He is absolutely right.
My God.
It was like the lights came on and I was able to see finally.
Indeed.
And when that happens, you are so empowered. And you actually, for me, at that moment, I outgrew people. There's a lot of people that's bound because they haven't outgrown the opinions of others. But I believe what Judy Garland said. I would rather be a first-rate version of myself than a second-rate version of somebody else. I don't have time for that.
It's just not possible.
Exactly. I can't be two people. I can only be me.
Right.
Yes.
Jennifer, closing thoughts.
Kim, why you do that to me? John, I can't. I can't.
Please do. You gotta close us out.
Kim. Oh.
You need a moment.
Okay, let me breathe. We have covered many topics, subtopics dealing with authenticity, about being vulnerable, gender barriers, about the fear, the overall situational awareness of being authentic, and how it is so important to tap into undiscovered territory, so to speak. When we step out of self, we are able to have those courageous conversations. We are able to take it like buttered bread, as Kim said. Authenticity is so important, and it allows that transparency to others to draw to us. They can connect.
Yeah.
And we can then be a beacon of hope and inspiration, as I like to say. What are people seeing when they cross your path? Are they seeing the fake you, or are they seeing something authentic, unique, and purposeful, fearfully and wonderfully made by our Creator? Mm-hmm. I am so blessed to have this episode. Just so excited. It did not let me down. It did not. I hope it didn't let you down, our viewers, our listeners. John, thank you so much for being here. I know Kim and I would love to have you back.
Oh, he's coming back.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, you will be coming back.
Whenever you're ready.
To bless us. WBND.com, WBNDradio.com. Check us out Thursday, 8:15 East Coast time. Kim, I'm struggling because this is your part. I'm going to turn it over to you. You know you're not right. I love you, sis. John, do you have any parting words before Kim closes it out?
You know, I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and you know, there are no mistakes. You know, there's only opportunity, and I'm just glad that we were brought together again for this moment in time. And the last thing I'll say on authenticity and finding your true self, you know, I made the inclination in the beginning, but now I want to make it definitive. You know, finding your authentic and true self is the difference between life and death. It's the difference between living a life while walking dead or living a life full of vision and purpose and understanding of who you were created to be. So if you haven't gotten on the path to finding your authentic self, let tonight be that night. And, you know, if you need me, I'm here. I'm here for that process. This is what I was built to do. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
John, real quick, how do they get in touch with you?
So,
do you have a website or anything?
So you can find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/regenerationlbc or at regeneration3@gmail.com. Contact me there, and we can get on to a coaching relationship, or if you need advice, just let me know. I'm here.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining me tonight for this outstanding, shareable, replayable episode of the Journey of Meeting of the Minds. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Keep the comments coming. Leave them below wherever you're watching this video. It doesn't matter what day it is. If you're catching the replay, leave us comments. We love to get the words back from you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And until next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Journey of Meeting of the Minds, we will see you then. But until then, make sure you take a little time every single day, every single moment to enjoy your journey. Have a great evening, everyone.